when a proud piano teacher mocked the quiet janitor for mopping floors. She never imagined that woman would sit at the keys and silence an entire school with a single note. In a famous music academy, where students wore pressed uniforms and teachers spoke in polite, formal voices, there was a certain pride that filled the hallways. The building smelled of polished wood and fresh sheet music. Grand pianos stood tall, like kings in every corner, and the sound of scales and sonatas echoed throughout the day. Everyone walked with their head high, especially the teachers. Among them, Miss Carolyn was known as the strictest, most respected piano teacher in the academy. She wore long skirts, glasses on a chain, and always carried a small leather notebook. Her fingers were thin and sharp, and her tongue even sharper. She had taught hundreds of students, some of whom had gone on to perform on the world's biggest stages. She had no patience for mistakes, excuses, or interruptions. On a chilly Monday morning, Miss Caroline was in her classroom with one of her favorite students, a teenage boy named Daniel. He was preparing for the upcoming winter recital and playing a difficult Beethoven piece. His fingers stumbled a bit on the left-hand chords, and Caroline frowned deeply. "Again," she said firmly. "You lost the rhythm. Start from bar 42. Daniel sighed and began again, more carefully this time. As he played, the sound of a mop bucket squeaking down the hallway entered the room. A soft humming followed. It was an old tune, maybe something Spanish, maybe something classical. It was quiet, but still noticeable. Caroline's eyes narrowed. Outside, a woman was gently cleaning the windows near the classroom door. She was the janitor, Maria. She looked around 60, had gray hair tied in a loose bun, and wore the academy's dark green uniform. Her face was kind, but tired. Her hands moved slowly, gracefully almost, as if she had done this for many years. And she hummed softly as she worked. Caroline stood up quickly and walked to the door. She opened it wide and looked directly at Maria. "Excuse?" "Me," Caroline said, her voice cool and clipped. "Could you please stop making noise? This is a music class, not a train station." Maria looked surprised but nodded. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't mean to disturb you." "Well, you did," Caroline snapped. "Just stick to mopping." "Please, we're trying to work in here." Maria nodded again quietly and rolled her bucket away. The hallway grew silent again. Daniel looked uncomfortable, glancing at his teacher and then at the door. "She didn't mean any harm," he mumbled, but Carolyn ignored him. "Bar 42, she said, pointing at the sheet music again. "Let's go." From that day on, Maria made sure to stay away from Caroline's classroom when students were playing. She cleaned early in the mornings or late in the evenings when most people had gone home. But sometimes when she thought no one was listening, she still hummed to herself. There was a sadness in her songs, something that felt deep and old, like forgotten memories. Most students didn't notice her. Some would smile politely as they passed her in the hall. A few teachers nodded in greeting, but no one really spoke to her. She was just the janitor there to clean the floors, wipe the glass, and make sure the bathrooms didn't smell. But one student did notice. Ellie was new to the academy. She had joined just 3 months ago, a scholarship student from a small town. Her parents couldn't afford fancy instruments or private lessons, but she had a natural gift. Her fingers danced on the keys like they had minds of their own. But she was shy, often staying late after classes to practice when no one else was around. One evening, after everyone had left, Ellie stayed behind to work on a Chopin piece. Her fingers were tired, and she kept making small mistakes. She slammed the lid of the piano shut and buried her face in her hands. That's when she heard it music. Soft, beautiful, and alive. Someone was playing the piano in the next room. But it wasn't a student. It didn't sound like practicing. It sounded like a song telling a story full of feeling. Ellie walked quietly down the hallway and peeked through the small window in the door. Inside, she saw Maria the janitor sitting at the piano. Her back was straight, her fingers moving gracefully, and her eyes closed as she played. It didn't look like she was reading music. She was playing from memory, or maybe from her heart. Ellie didn't say anything. She didn't want to interrupt. She just stood there amazed. The next day, during lunch, Ellie asked one of the other students. Do you know anything about the janitor, Maria? The boy laughed. What? The mop lady? Nah, she's just the cleaner. Why? Ellie shrugged. No reason, but she kept thinking about it. Over the next few days, Ellie noticed little things. Maria always wiped the piano benches extra carefully. She sometimes paused near the music rooms, listening just for a moment. Once, Ellie saw her pick up a piece of sheet music someone had dropped. Instead of throwing it away, Maria folded it neatly and placed it back on the stand. One afternoon, as Maria was cleaning the hallway near the practice rooms, Lee walked up to her. Hi, Ellie, said shyly. Maria looked up and smiled. Hello, dear, do you play the piano? Ellie asked gently. Maria paused. I used to. A long time ago. You're really good, Ellie said. I heard you the other day. Maria looked embarrassed. Oh, I didn't mean for anyone to hear. Just sometimes I miss it. It helps me feel alive again, Ellie smiled. It sounded beautiful. Maria touched her heart. Thank you. Just then, Miss Caroline walked past. She heard part of the conversation and stopped. Ellie, she said sharply, shouldn't you be practicing? Was just Ellie began. Caroline looked at Maria with cold eyes. Don't distract the students, please. Maria nodded silently and turned away. Ellie looked down, embarrassed, and followed her teacher back inside. That night, Maria sat, alone in the cleaning room, holding a small worn piece of paper. It was a photograph, black and white, faded, with a young girl sitting at a piano, smiling brightly. Maria stared at it for a long time. She folded it carefully, placed it back in her pocket, and went back to mopping. Caroline, meanwhile, thought no more about it. In her eyes, Maria was just a cleaner. She had no place near a piano, no matter how nicely she could play. Music wasn't just about feeling. It was about perfection, discipline, and years of training. And in her mind, janitors didn't belong on stage, but the music Maria played that night stayed in Ellie's heart. It wasn't about notes or technique, it was something deeper, something that made her feel like music could heal things, not just impress people. Ellie didn't understand why someone so talented was cleaning floors, but she promised herself she would find out. Even if no one else noticed Maria, Ellie did. And deep inside, something told her that Maria's story was far from over. Because sometimes, the people we ignore are carrying the most beautiful songs. Inside them, just waiting for someone to listen. And this was only the beginning. The air inside the academy was getting colder as winter slowly crept in. The big oak trees outside had lost most of their leaves, and the piano rooms now echoed with the same few recital pieces over and over.
Yes.
Teachers walked a little faster down the halls, students wore extra sweaters, and the janitors moved from room to room with their cleaning carts, trying not to be seen. Maria the janitor was quieter than usual and more careful. After Miss Caroline's harsh words, she had stopped, humming while she worked. She tried to finish her job early and avoided going near the piano rooms when students were around, but something had changed. A few students had started whispering to each other about her. It had begun after Ellie mentioned that she had heard Maria play. At first, no one believed her. You mean the cleaning lady? One boy said, raising an eyebrow. She can't even wear shoes without holes. What do you mean she plays the piano? Heard her, Ellie replied simply. She played better than anyone I've seen here. Better than Daniel, someone else asked, surprised. Better than Miss Caroline, Ellie said quietly. No. One laughed after that. A few days later, a boy named Leo stayed after class to practice in one of the small piano rooms. He was the curious type, always asking questions and sneaking around the library for secrets. That evening, as he played a few warm-up chords, he heard a melody coming from another room down the hallway. It wasn't loud, but it was deep, full, and magical. He stopped playing, opened the door, and tiptoed down the corridor. There she was, Maria sitting at an old upright piano. Eyes closed, fingers moving like they were remembering something the world had forgotten. She didn't notice him watching. When she finished, Leo ducked behind a wall before she stood up and walked away quietly. He ran back to his practice room, his heart racing. The next morning, Leo told Ellie everything. "I saw her. You were right. She's incredible." "I told you," Ellie whispered. Soon more students started staying later, hoping to catch a moment of Maria's secret playing. Some would sit quietly outside the room listening in the dark. One girl recorded a short piece on her phone and shared it with a few trusted friends. That short clip, just 60 seconds, spread through the student body like fire in dry grass. They were stunned. The woman they saw mopping floors played piano like a master. Some students began treating her differently, offering polite greetings or smiling at her when she passed. Maria noticed, but she didn't say anything. She just kept working. One afternoon, Ellie decided to talk to her again. She waited until Maria was folding clean towels near the staff supply room. "Miss Maria," she said gently. Maria looked up, her kind eyes tired but warm. "Yes, dear. Why don't you play more often? People want to hear you." Maria smiled faintly. "I play for myself now." "That's enough. But you should be teaching," Ellie said. "You're better than most teachers here." Maria shook her head slowly. "Those days are gone. Life has a way of changing things." Ellie didn't understand. She wanted to ask more, but Maria picked up her bucket and said, "Thank you for your kindness," and walked away. But that wasn't the end of it. Leo, being the curious boy he was, decided to dig deeper. He went to the school library, where old yearbooks and newspaper articles were stored in dusty boxes. He spent hours flipping through yellowed pages and blurry photos, and then he found it. A music magazine from 1985. On the cover, Maria Velázquez, Spain's brightest piano star. The photo showed a young woman with long black hair, smiling confidently beside a grand piano. The article talked about her winning international competitions, performing in Paris, London, and New York. It said she had something special: emotion, power, and soul. But the article ended with a mystery. After her daughter's tragic death and her husband's disappearance, Maria Velázquez vanished from the public eye. Some say she gave up piano forever. Leo couldn't believe it. He printed out the article and brought it to Ellie. "This is her," he said, handing her the paper. "Maria Velázquez. She was famous. A legend." Ellie read every word carefully. It made sense now. The sadness in Maria's music, the pain in her eyes, the way she kept her distance, had once been someone great, then lost everything. "What are we going to do?" Ellie asked. Leo grinned. "We show the others." The article began to spread quietly among the students. They shared the video clip again, this time with the article. Suddenly, Maria was no longer just a janitor. She was a forgotten master, a story of heartbreak and hidden brilliance. The students began treating her with new respect. Few even started calling her Miss Maria, though she gently corrected them each time. Caroline, however, had no idea what was going on. She noticed the students whispering more during breaks, looking at their phones, and sometimes looking at Maria in a strange way. One morning, she asked Daniel, "What's going on with everyone? Why are they all acting like they've seen a ghost?" Daniel hesitated. "They're just talking about music." Caroline didn't believe him. That evening, as she walked down the hallway, she saw a group of students sitting quietly outside one of the piano rooms. Curious, she stepped closer. Inside, Maria was playing again. Caroline's eyes widened. The melody was soft, yet full of power. Each note was perfectly placed. It was the kind of music that made the heart ache and the soul rise. She couldn't deny it. Whoever was playing had true talent. She opened the door. Maria stopped mid-song and looked up, startled. The students froze. "What is this?" Caroline asked, stepping in slowly. No one answered. "Who taught you that?" she asked Maria. Maria stood slowly. "No one. I taught myself, a long time ago." "Oh, why?" Caroline narrowed her eyes. "You're not supposed to be using school instruments." "You're not just using them," Ellie said, her voice steady, breathing life into them. Caroline looked at her sharply. "Ellie, this is not your concern." "But then." Leo stepped forward and handed Caroline the printed article. "Maybe it is," he said. You should read this." Caroline took the paper and read the headline. Her face changed. Her eyes moved quickly down the page and then back to Maria. "You're Maria Velasquez?" she asked, stunned. Maria didn't speak. She only nodded. Slowly, Caroline stood still, unsure of what to say. This woman she had once scolded and insulted was a world-class pianist. A woman with more talent than most teachers. In the building, a woman she had dismissed without a second thought. "I didn't know," Caroline said finally, her voice quiet. Maria looked at her gently. "Few people do." Without another word, Maria picked up her cleaning cloth and walked out of the room. That night, the academy buzzed with energy. Students talked in whispers about Maria's past. Some wanted to invite her to the winter recital. Others said she should give a master class. Few suggested she'll replace one of the teachers. Carolyn sat in her office staring at the article again. Her pride burned inside her. How could she have missed it? How could she have treated someone like that? But deep inside, another feeling grew: regret. Maria, meanwhile, sat in the tiny staff kitchen, sipping tea from a chipped mug. She thought about the past, about stages and lights and audiences, about her daughter's laughter and the way her husband once held her hand. She had lost everything. And now, years later, a group of young students were trying to bring her back to life. She smiled softly. Maybe music wasn't finished with her after all. And maybe, just maybe, the world still had room for one more song. Ellie had always been strong, but lately she was starting to break. Her fingers didn't move like they used to. Timing was off, her notes were flat, and her mind wasn't fully there. Every time she sat in front of the piano, the music felt far away, like something she couldn't reach anymore. The winter recital was only a few weeks away. She was supposed to perform a solo piece, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was her favorite. But now it felt like a mountain she couldn't climb. What no one at the academy knew was that Ellie's father had just been diagnosed with a serious illness. Her mom was working 2 jobs, and Ellie had been trying to practice, study, and support her family all at once. Her heart was heavy. She cried silently at night, hiding her pain behind fake smiles during the day. Music, once her safe place, now became another pressure that made her feel like she was drowning. Miss Caroline was growing impatient. "I don't know what's wrong with you lately," he told Ellie during a lesson. "You're playing like a child. Your fingers are lazy. Your tempo is sloppy. If this continues, I'll have to replace you in the recital." Ellie's face turned red. She nodded without arguing, but her chest ached. She didn't want to cry in front of Caroline. She gathered her things quickly and left the room without a word. That evening, she didn't go home. She stayed behind, alone in one of the smaller practice rooms. She sat at the piano, staring at the keys through tear-filled eyes. Her fingers rested on the keys, but no sound came. She wanted to play, but she couldn't. Her hands trembled. "I can't do this," she whispered to herself. "I can't." A few minutes passed. The room was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the wall clock. Then the door opened gently. Ellie wiped her tears quickly and looked up. It was Maria. "I'm sorry," Ellie said, embarrassed. "Didn't know anyone was here." Maria stepped inside, carrying a small cloth in one hand. She looked at Ellie with kind eyes. "It's okay," she said softly. "Just came to tidy up a bit." Ellie nodded, lowering her eyes. Maria noticed the sheet music on the stand: Chopin's Nocturne. She walked slowly to the piano and placed her hand gently on the wood. "This piece," she said quietly, "is full of longing. It's beautiful, but painful. It's not easy to play when your heart is already heavy." Ellie looked at her. "You know it?" Maria gave a small smile. "Yes, I used to play it, when I missed someone I loved." For a moment, neither of them spoke, and Maria sat beside Ellie on the bench. She looked at the keys, took a deep breath, and placed her fingers gently on them. Then she began to play. The sound that came from the piano was unlike anything Ellie had heard before. It wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. The notes weren't just correct. They felt like they had emotions. Sadness, hope, love, pain, all mixed together in a perfect quiet storm. Maria didn't rush. She let each note breathe. It was as if the piano itself was crying gently. Ellie didn't move. She didn't even blink. Her heart felt like it was being held by the music, gently rocked back and forth. When Maria finished, the room was completely silent. Ellie whispered, "How did you do that?" Maria looked at her. "You played it with your head." "I played it with my heart." Tears rolled down Ellie's cheeks again. But this time, they weren't only sad tears. Something inside her shifted. "I don't know if I can do it," she said. "Everything's falling apart at home. I feel like I'm pretending. All the time, like I'm not really here." Maria nodded slowly. "Music doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest. Play what you feel, not what others expect." Ellie took a shaky breath. "But Miss Caroline says I'll be replaced." Maria's voice was soft but strong, then proved her wrong. Not with fear, with truth. Ellie looked down at her hands. "Will you help me?" Maria thought for a moment, then nodded. "If you truly want to play from your soul, I'll help." From that day forward, Maria began meeting Ellie after hours in the small piano room. They didn't call it lessons. It was more like sharing. Maria would sit beside her, guiding her, not just with technique, but with emotion. She taught Ellie how to breathe with the music, how to let her pain become sound, how to let go of fear. "Don't fight the keys," Maria would say. "Feel them." They played together, sometimes repeating a single phrase over and over until it felt like Ellie's heart was speaking clearly through the piano. Maria didn't raise her voice. She didn't criticize. She simply understood. The change in Ellie was slow, but powerful. Her playing became deeper, warmer. Her fingers stopped shaking. Her posture straightened. Her sadness was still there, but it no longer drowned. Hurt flowed through her music like a quiet river. Meanwhile, Caroline began to notice something. One morning, Ellie played her recital piece again during a regular class. Caroline expected another disaster. But this time, as soon as Ellie began, Caroline's eyes widened. The notes were perfect, but more than that, they were honest. The music had feeling. It told a story, made the room go still. When the last note faded, Caroline didn't say anything for a long time. Then she finally spoke. "That was better," she admitted. "It's much better." Ellie didn't say where the change had come from. She just nodded. Over the next few days, other students started talking too. Daniel had seen Ellie practicing late at night with Maria. He told Leo, then Leo told everyone. "Maria's helping." "Her?" they whispered. Some were shocked. Others were excited. One evening, Leo stayed behind and knocked on the door of the small piano room. Maria opened it, surprised. I just wanted to say thank you," Leo said. "Ellie's playing inspired me. I didn't think a janitor could be a teacher too." Maria looked at him. "Music doesn't care about uniforms." Leo smiled. "Can I watch you play one day?" Maria hesitated, then nodded. Soon more students began peeking in during her quiet sessions with Ellie. No one was loud. No one interrupted. They just listened. The small piano room became something sacred, like a place where music was born fresh every night. But not everyone was happy. One evening, as Caroline was locking up, she passed by the room and saw a group of students sitting on the floor outside. Outside, Maria was playing a duet with Ellie, something warm and lively. Caroline's jaw tightened. She walked away without saying a word, but something twisted in her chest. Was she being ignored, or was she being replaced? That night, she sat alone in her office and stared at her old certificate of excellence. It used to mean something. Now, she wondered if she had lost the one thing Maria still had true connection. Maria, on the other hand, didn't want praise. She didn't want attention. She only wanted to help someone find their music again like she once had. And in doing so, something inside her was healing too. She started smiling more. She hummed again while she cleaned. The sadness in her eyes didn't vanish, but it no longer ruled her. For Ellie, Maria wasn't just a mentor. She had become a friend, a lifeline, a quiet light during a dark time. And as the recital day came closer, Ellie felt ready. Not perfect, but honest. And that was enough. Because sometimes, when the world forgets who you are, it takes just one broken person to remind another how to feel whole again. And in that small piano room, late at night, with no applause and no audience, two souls found their way back to the music hand, back to themselves. The winter wind howled outside the music academy as snow softly covered the sidewalks. Inside, the students moved with quiet excitement. The recital was only days away, and everyone was practicing harder than ever. Notes from pianos filled the building from morning to night. But even though it looked like everything was normal, something very different was happening behind the scenes. Whispers about Maria. The janitor had now spread to every corner of the school. Some students had heard her play in secret. Others had seen her helping Ellie in the piano rooms after hours. A few had even cried listening to her music. The recording Leo had taken the short clip of Maria playing that beautiful, heartbreaking melody was now being shared secretly among the students, and not just inside the academy. Some had sent it to their friends, who shared it further. Then, one day, a music blogger saw the video online. The title read, "Unknown Janitor Plays Piano Better Than Professionals." The blogger wrote an article, "Could this be the lost genius Maria Velasquez?" Suddenly, everything changed. In just a few hours, the article was shared on social media thousands of times. Musicians from all over the country began commenting. Former teachers, retired conductors, and even old music critics started writing, "Is this really her?" One of them posted an old photo from a 1980s newspaper showing a young woman on stage. In a red dress, her hands frozen mid-note on the piano. Under the picture, it read, "Maria Velasquez, Spanish piano prodigy, stuns New York crowd." Students at the academy were shocked. "It's really her?" they whispered in amazement. She was famous, a real star. Maria, of course, had no idea her music was going viral. She didn't use the internet. She still owned a small, old phone without any apps. She didn't read blogs or watch videos, for her music lived inside the piano, not on screens. But Caroline found out. She was sitting in the teacher's lounge, sipping coffee and grading papers, when one of the younger teachers walked in, holding a tablet. "Have you seen this?" he asked. Caroline looked up, annoyed. "Seen what?" The teacher showed her the video. Caroline's eyes narrowed as the clip played. She recognized the sound, the style. Her mouth went dry when she read the comments. "Maria Velasquez is alive? This is genius. Better than anyone today." "No," she whispered to herself. "It can't be." She closed the video quickly and stood up. Her mind raced. The woman she had once scolded for humming, the same woman she told to stick to mopping, was now being called a legend. She hurried to the headmaster's office. "Did you know about this?" she demanded. The headmaster raised his eyebrows calmly. "I did. In fact, I just spoke with the school board." "What?" she asked. "They want to recognize Maria formally," he said. "If this is truly her, and we have strong proof it is, then it's a great honor for our academy." Carolyn clenched her jaw. "She's the janitor," the headmaster nodded, "and she's also a world-class pianist." "People can be more than one thing, Carolyn." She left the office, furious and confused. That afternoon, Caroline pulled out her old files, dusty with age. She found old concert programs and music competition reports. Maria's name appeared again and again, not just as a participant, but as the winner, the star. One paper described her as the girl who makes pianos cry. Another said, "Maria Velasquez doesn't play music, she becomes it." Caroline leaned back in her chair, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Shame. When she walked past Maria later that evening, she didn't say anything. But for the first time, she didn't look down at her. She looked straight at her hand, then away. Maria noticed, but said nothing. Meanwhile, Ellie continued to meet with Maria in the piano room every night. Their bond had grown stronger. They didn't just talk about music anymore. They talked about life. Maria told Ellie about her daughter, how she had died young in a car accident. She spoke of the pain, the silence that followed, the way she had lost all reason to play after that. Her husband had left soon after, unable to deal with the grief. "I stopped being Maria the pianist," she said quietly. "I became Maria, the broken." Ellie listened with tears in her eyes. "But why did you come here?" she asked. Maria smiled softly. "I needed to work. I saw the piano rooms when I applied for the job. I thought maybe one day I'd be brave enough to touch the keys again." "Were you?" Ellie asked. Maria looked at her. "No, but you were. And your music brought mine back to life." The night before the recital, something unexpected happened. A famous piano teacher from Spain flew in and visited the academy. His name was Mr. Navarro, and he had been a judge at many international competitions in the past. When he saw the viral video of Maria, he recognized her instantly. He asked to meet her. The headmaster brought Maria to his office. She entered nervously, wiping her hands on her cleaning apron. Mr. Navarro stood when she walked in. "Maria Velasquez," he said gently. She looked up, confused. "Yes, I remember the last time I heard you play. You were 17, Paris. Debussy's Clair de Lune," I cried. Maria covered her mouth, shocked. "You remember that?" He nodded. "The world remembers you, Maria. We've missed you." She sat down, stunned. Mr. Navarro continued. "You disappeared? And we never knew why." "My daughter died," Maria said quietly. Music became a wound, not a comfort. Navarro placed a hand on hers. "But you've healed others with it now. You've done more than perform. You've inspired." Tears filled Maria's eyes. "I never thought anyone would care again." "They do," he said, "and they always will." Word of Mr. Navarro's visit spread fast. Students were amazed. Even teachers were whispering in hallways. Maria, the janitor, was now not only a legend, but a guest of honor. That evening, Carolyn called Ellie to her classroom. Ellie entered nervously. "I know Maria's been helping you," Carolyn said. Ellie nodded. "Yes, ma'am." Caroline looked away. "I was wrong about her, about a lot of things." Ellie didn't know what to say. Caroline sighed. "Do you think she'd consider playing at the recital?" Ellie smiled, asked her. "Later that night, Carolyn approached Maria. "I want to apologize," she said. Maria looked surprised. "I judged you unfairly," Carolyn admitted, "and I spoke harshly. You didn't deserve that." Maria's eyes softened. "Thank you. That means a lot." "I also want to invite you," Caroline added, "to perform at the recital. With Ellie, if you agree." Maria was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Yes." The next day, posters were changed. The recital program was updated, and at the bottom of the list, a new line was added. "Special performance, Ellie and Maria Velasquez." The students cheered when they saw it. The night of the recital finally arrived. The auditorium was packed. Families filled the seats, music critics sat in the back, and even local news reporters stood with cameras. The stage was lit in soft gold, and the grand piano waited at center stage. One by one, students performed their pieces. They bowed politely. Applause filled the room. Then the announcer stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to welcome a special duet this evening. Performing Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, please welcome Ellie Harper and Maria Velasquez." The room went silent. As Maria walked onto the stage in a simple black dress, the crowd gasped. She didn't look like a janitor. She looked like a queen. Ellie walked beside her, holding her hand gently. They sat down together. Maria nodded once at Ellie, and then they began to play. The music filled the hall. It wasn't just beautiful, it was breathtaking. Each note was like a secret being told. Ellie's hands danced gently over the keys, and Maria's followed with deep emotional grace. Together, they made something magical. People in the audience wiped away tears. Even Carolyn, sitting in the front row, felt her chest tighten. When they finished, the room was silent for 2 seconds, then exploded into applause. The crowd stood, clapping louder than they ever had before. Maria stood slowly, bowing with Ellie beside her. For the first time in decades, she was not invisible. She was seen. She was loved. Backstage, as the recital ended, students surrounded her. Some asked for autographs. Others hugged her. Even the teachers approached with respectful smiles. And Caroline. She stepped forward, looked Maria in the eyes, and said, "Thank you for showing us what true music really is." Maria smiled, her eyes shining. For the first time in years, she felt whole again. Not because of applause, not because of fame, but because someone listened, and someone believed. And now so did she. The applause still echoed in Maria's ears long after she and Ellie left the stage. As they walked through the hallway behind the auditorium, Maria held on to Ellie's hand tightly. Her eyes were wet with tears, but her heart felt light, maybe for the first time in many years. She looked at Ellie and smiled, a warm, deep smile that reached all the way to her soul. "I never thought I would hear that sound again," Maria whispered. Ellie looked up at her. "You deserved it. You always did." The recital night had changed everything. The students who once passed by Maria without even noticing her now greeted her with respect. They waved at her in the halls. Some stopped to talk. Others asked questions about music. A few even shyly asked if she would teach them anything. Maria was surprised at first. She wasn't used to so much attention. For years, she had tried to stay small, quiet, and hidden. But now, everyone wanted to know her story, her music, and her heart. The very next morning, the headmaster of the academy called Maria into his office again. He was smiling. "You've become quite popular," he said kindly. Maria chuckled. "I suppose so. It feels strange." "You've done more than play piano," the headmaster said.
Oh.
"You've reminded everyone what music really means." Maria looked down shyly. "I only did what I knew how to do. That's exactly what this school needs," he said, "which is why I'd like to offer you something." Maria looked up, confused. "Offer me?" "Yes, a position as a guest piano instructor. You'll teach part-time. Help guide students with emotion and performance. No cleaning, no mopping. Just music." Maria couldn't speak. Her lips trembled. She covered her mouth with her hand and tears rolled down her cheeks. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say yes," the headmaster smiled. Maria nodded slowly. "Yes, I'd be honored." Word spread quickly around the academy. "Maria's going to teach," the students said excitedly. "The janitor is now a piano instructor."
Ash!
But no one said it in a mocking way. They were proud, happy, inspired, even. The other teachers, including those who had ignored her before, started to show respect. Mr. Tom, the violin teacher, shook her hand and said, "Listen to your recording, beautiful." Ms. Nguyen, the voice teacher, smiled and said, "We've missed music like yours." And then there was Miss Carolyn. She had been quiet since the recital. She watched everything from a distance, her sharp eyes filled with thoughts. She remembered every moment she had dismissed Maria, every cold word, every time she looked down on her, every time she treated her like she was invisible. One day, Caroline knocked on the small room where Maria now sat at a desk, helping Ellie with a new piece. Ellie opened the door. "May I come in?" Caroline asked softly. Maria looked up and nodded. Of course, Caroline stepped inside slowly. She looked nervous, like she didn't know how to begin. Then she took a deep breath. "I want to say something," she said. "Something I should have said long ago." Maria watched her calmly. "I was wrong," Caroline said. "There I judged you based on your clothes, your job, and not your heart. I didn't see your soul. I said things I deeply regret." Maria nodded gently, but stayed quiet. "You taught me something," Caroline continued. "Not just about music, about humility, about kindness. And I'm grateful." There was a long silence. Then Maria stood up, walked over to her and softly said, "Thank you. That means a lot." They looked at each other for a long time, and in that moment, something passed between them. Respect. Not just for music, but for each other. Over the next few weeks, Maria's life changed more than she had ever imagined. She was given a new office space near the music wing. A small upright piano was placed in the corner, and a simple nameplate sat on her desk. Maria Velasquez, piano instructor. She kept her cleaning uniform folded neatly in a drawer. She said it reminded her never to forget where she had been. Students began requesting private sessions with her. Not just because she was famous, but because she understood them. She didn't teach like the others. She didn't shout or pressure. She listened. She asked about their feelings. She told them, play what you can't say with words. And suddenly, students who had struggled for years started to improve. Ellie, of course, was her closest student. The two were now like family, ate lunch together, walked in the gardens after class, and sometimes played quiet duets in the early evenings. Maria even visited Ellie's home one day and met her mother, who hugged Maria tightly and said, "Thank you for saving my daughter." Maria smiled. She saved me too. One afternoon, something unexpected arrived at the academy. A letter written in soft, beautiful handwriting. It was from a famous orchestra in Spain. They had seen the viral video and read the articles. They asked Maria if she would be willing to perform in their upcoming spring concert as a featured soloist. Maria sat in silence for a long time after reading the letter. Ellie sat beside her. "Are you going to do it?" Leah asked. Maria's hands trembled slightly. "I haven't played on a real stage in 30 years. You've already played on the biggest stage of all," Ellie said. "You played for broken hearts. That matters more." Maria looked at her and smiled. Then maybe it's time. She accepted the offer. That spring, Maria traveled to Madrid. She walked onto the stage of a famous concert hall one she had. Last seen as a young girl full of dreams, the audience was silent. The lights were soft. The piano waited, and when Maria sat down, she closed her eyes and played. The music that filled the air was not just perfect hit, it was honest. It carried the weight of pain, the light of healing, the joy of rediscovery. Every note told a story, her story. The crowd gave her a standing ovation, and people cried openly. Maria Velázquez was no longer forgotten. She was home. Back at the academy, a special plaque was placed in the hallway. It read, "Maria Velázquez, a woman who reminded us that true music does not come from hands but from the heart." And beside it, quote from her most cherished lesson, "Sometimes the quietest voices hold the loudest songs. All they need is someone to listen." Years passed, and Maria continued teaching. Her hair turned more silver, but her smile never faded. She played often, but only when her heart needed to speak. Ellie went on to become a music therapist, inspired by what she had learned not from textbooks, but from Maria's soul. One rainy afternoon, as Maria walked down the hallway, she passed a young student struggling with a piano piece. The girl looked frustrated, her hands stiff, her eyes wet. Maria sat beside her and said softly, "Close your eyes, breathe. Now, play like you're telling a story." The girl did, and once again, in a small, quiet room, a broken heart began to heal one note at a time. Because Maria had learned the greatest truth of all. You don't need a spotlight to shine. Sometimes your music finds the light for you, and it changes everything.